Teachers who got sued by a student. What happened? I taught 10th grade for 12 years, and I'd never had a student like Paxton. On his first day, he kicked over his desk because I asked him to put his phone away. The metal legs scraped across the floor, and papers went flying everywhere while the other students sat frozen in their seats. I knew his dad from when we went to high school together 20 years ago, and recognized that same angry look in Paxton's eyes. His dad, Ricky, had been the kid who punched lockers and got suspended every other week back when we were students. I'd gotten straight A's while Ricky barely graduated and spent most of his time in detention. Now here was his son carrying on the family tradition of making teachers' lives difficult. Paxton ended up in the principal's office 3 times that first week alone for throwing textbooks and cursing at staff members. I tried everything to help Paxton succeed despite his behavior. I let him turn in late assignments without penalty and offered to tutor him after school for free. When he forgot his lunch, I'd quietly slip him $5 from my wallet. I knew his mom had left when he was 8, and Ricky worked construction jobs that barely paid the bills. The kid was dealing with more than most teenagers should have to handle. The outbursts got worse as the semester went on. Paxton would slam his fists on his desk when he got frustrated with assignments. He'd stand up and pace around the room during lessons, muttering under his breath. Other students started complaining to their parents about feeling unsafe in my class. The principal suggested moving Paxton to alternative school, but I fought to keep him because I believed he just needed someone to care. One November morning, Paxton came to class looking worse than usual. His clothes were wrinkled, and he had dark circles under his eyes like he hadn't slept in days. When I handed back a test with a failing grade, he completely lost it. He swept everything off his desk and threw his backpack against the wall. Books crashed to the floor, and his water bottle exploded when it hit the whiteboard. The other kids scrambled away from him as he stood up shaking with rage. I stepped between Paxton and a girl named Jenny who was crying in fear. Paxton tried to push past me to get to another student who'd laughed at his tantrum. His elbow caught me hard in the ribs, and I felt something crack. Pain shot through my side, but I couldn't let him hurt anyone else. I grabbed his arm firmly but carefully and guided him toward the door while he thrashed and yelled that everyone was against him. The security officer met us in the hallway and took Paxton to the office while I went to the nurse. X-rays later showed 2 bruised ribs that would hurt for weeks. I filed the required incident report but specifically asked that Paxton not be expelled. I knew throwing him out would only make his life worse. The principal reluctantly agreed to a 3-day suspension instead of permanent removal. 2 weeks later, I got served with legal papers at school. Paxton and his dad were suing me for assault and emotional distress. They wanted $200,000, claiming I'd attacked Paxton and humiliated him in front of his peers. Ricky had written in the complaint that I'd always thought I was better than everyone, and now I was taking it out on his son. He mentioned our high school days and said I probably made good money as a teacher. The truth was I made $42,000 a year and drove a 15-year-old Honda. I spent my own money on classroom supplies and worked a second job tutoring on weekends to pay my bills. But Ricky assumed that because I'd gotten good grades, I must be rich now. He saw a chance to get money through his son's bad behavior and took it without thinking about what it would do to Paxton's future. The court case dragged on for 6 months. I had to hire a lawyer, which cost most of my savings. 22 students gave statements about Paxton's violent behavior in class. The security footage clearly showed me protecting other students and carefully removing Paxton from a dangerous situation. My bruised ribs were documented in medical records. The judge saw through Ricky's money grab immediately. When the case was dismissed, I looked at Paxton, who'd sat silent through the whole trial. His dad was cursing about the system being rigged, but Paxton just stared at the floor. I walked over and said quietly, "We all make choices, Paxton. You could have chosen to do better and you didn't. I hope you decide better next time." He finally looked up at me with tears in his eyes but didn't say anything. I transferred to Madison High the next year. I couldn't keep teaching at a school where I'd been sued for trying to help a student.